Blackberries. Everybody knows what they are. This is one of those amazing wild plants that you can harvest at home and forage and basically provide yourself some very high quality berries for the freezer to get you through the winter. So blackberries are in the raspberry family. They're another one of those plants that's pretty familiar to most people. I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of them in North America, but most people don't think too much about them because you kind of only think of the time when it's time to pick fruit. So where we live in North America, the Great Lakes region, there's actually two species of blackberry. This is common blackberry, and the other species is smooth blackberry. Both are very, very similar in sort of the berries that they produce, and also very similar in how they look. So here's a bit of a close-up view of a blackberry cane. Now this is the fruiting cane, so it gets a little taller, but one of the things that you can always look for when you're looking for blackberries is they have an angular stem. It's often five-sided, but basically you can kind of see there, it's almost like little ridges. So each side of the stem is flat. Both common blackberry, which is the one in front of me here, and smooth blackberry are basically the same in that profile of the twig. Now unfortunately I don't have any smooth blackberry to show you here. We only have the common blackberry, but one of the big differences is the number of spines on the plant, on the twig especially. So common blackberry is quite profusely covered in those really sharp, pretty nasty thorns that a lot of people just call brambles. Smooth blackberry still has them, but tends to have far fewer, but otherwise the plants are very, very similar. Of course, one of the big differences between blackberry and the raspberries is the leaf. Common blackberry and smooth blackberry both have these pinnately compound leaves. So this is an excellent example right here in front of me with its 5 little leaflets. Not too much else looks like it that grows on such a heavily armored branch. And like most members of the raspberry family, or at least the larger members that are more familiar to people, the berries are born on second year canes. So this cane here that I've been showing you is a first year cane. It's not going to have any fruit this year, but next year it'll be covered in fruit. And of course this one that's sort of bent over here is a second year cane. And you can notice now size here, they're getting pretty similar because we're getting into late August. So the first year canes are almost as big or as big as the second year canes, but you can definitely see a difference in the color. When they get older like this, the older growth tends to take on that sort of burgundy, mahogany, browny red. I'm not exactly sure what color you'd call it, but hue. And eventually this cane will die back, just like raspberries or the red raspberries. This will die back this year, but you can kind of see here, when you have wild blackberries, you don't necessarily need to tend them exactly the same way as you would domestic raspberries or cultivars that you've planted. If you've got the right conditions and the right soil, blackberry tends to like dry soil, you can see here, it will spread and quite vigorously compete with sort of native vegetation. Both common and smooth blackberry tend to be upland plants. They don't really like getting their feet very wet, and you'll tend to find them in drier sites, basically more open sites. They're kind of shade intolerant like most members of the family, not all, but most. They definitely like sandier soil, or in our case we kind of have a sandy loam. They do quite well, and they spread the same way as red raspberry by underground runners or rhizomes. So a patch can become pretty big in a short period of time. So the one thing about blackberries versus raspberries, it takes a little while for all the fruits to ripen. They kind of ripen sporadically on the canes here, as you can see. Obviously the black or the purple berries are the berries that are ready to be harvested, and the red ones are still to ripen. So the one thing about common blackberry is if you want to sort of maximize your harvest, you're going to have to come back every couple of days and keep harvesting a little bit off the plant, because they won't all ripen at once. And the last thing that I think is kind of nice about blackberries and harvesting blackberries is it happens at a time of year when there's not as much else going on, at least where we live. The raspberries are already done by the time the common blackberries get to producing or ripening, and the fall harvests really haven't begun yet, so it's a really good in-between crop for us where we live. Very common and widespread plant. Common blackberry has a huge range in North America, which makes it awesome because the vast majority of us probably have access to it. And as I say, even if you don't have it on your own property, chances are there's somewhere relatively nearby that you can go and you can find this plant. I'm sure the vast majority of you have tried blackberries, but there you go. You've got a little bit more information to arm yourself with of how to identify the plant by more than just its berries, and that there actually is more than one kind of blackberry out there. So you're still not too late. If you get out now, you can probably find some blackberries somewhere near you to harvest and add to your foodstuffs.